Okay. So good evening, everyone. If you're joining for the first time, just a couple of lines about History Walas. We are a small group who works in the domain of history and heritage. We also do some consulting with respect to, for example, commission research and curation. Um, and also we sometimes, or we used to before the pandemic, conduct some heritage tours and walks, etc. We don't know when that will resume again, but yeah, this is what we do. Other than this, for today's webinar, thank you all again for joining. And what we thought was it will be very interesting to look at somebody who has worked at the front line in our socio-political sort of landscape, right? And I have been I've known Mahesh for a long time and I've been seeing his work, and I've always been interested in his archive, in his personal archive of photographs which he has clicked from early 80s onwards as part of his professional life, right? And also his personal projects. So I thought it's a fantastic idea when we look at what has happened in India from the in you know from a photographer's eye in the last 3-4 decades, right? And with that thought, we thought, why not ask Mahesh to come and talk to us and share some of his images and talk to us about, the context in which they were clicked and what was he looking for at that time and what was the situation like when he clicked the photo or the particular image, right? And that will also, we'll realize that will also give us a picture of what has happened in the country when we look through those images, right? And um, with that little introduction, about Mahesh, as it's the Mahesh's bio is also in the chat. You can look it up. From a logistics perspective, simple ground rules. We will, if you have a question, we request you to ask questions, and please type your questions in the chat as soon as you kind of think of it or it comes to you, so that we can take it up at the at the end after Mahesh's talk. If you feel that there is something which you want to intervene at that particular time and ask Mahesh, that's also okay. Mahesh, is that okay with you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. So with that, I will let Mahesh go ahead and talk, and his bio is in the chat. You can also read while he uh, starts his talk today. Thank you, Mahesh, for doing this for us. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Basav. Guys, Basav, one thing, let me just wanted to correct you a bit. Please don't word the use click.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Made photographs made by me or
Yeah.
me a photographer.
Yes.
Not click, because click is just the sound of the shutter. And there's so much more goes in while visualizing and thinking of it. So that's a constant thing that I keep telling people. So photographs made. Yeah, thanks for having me this evening, and thanks for all of them, all of you people who have made it this evening for the webinar. I know there are webinars going around all the time, so thanks for coming here. It would have been lovely to meet everybody in person. I kind of don't like talking to ether. I have had to do this a lot, much more than many of you, unless you were teachers in the last 1.5 years. So therefore, I really miss that one-on-one connects that takes place when one is talking physically. Luckily for us, I think the colleges are reopening on 6th. So we are waiting for that to, all of us are waiting for that to happen. So, okay, now let me start off. Though, Basav and I had, when we had discussed, we were talking about the India. I have kind of restricted the 20 odd images that I'm going to show and talk to this evening to Karnataka, the geographical area, but it has its ramifications, etc. Through it has its value even in the in Indian context. For I don't know how many of you know, but I hope this is not a repetitive information. I was born in Mangalore. The picture that you see on your screen right now is Mangalore sometime in the mid 80s. Uh, it was in a place called Kodialbail, and what you see at the background, is a 10-storied building, which was considered to be like the skyscraper of Mangalore at that time. Now it's been dwarfed by other tall buildings. So this was a photograph, right close to my school, college, etc. Uh, and I found it recently when I have been working through my archives and scanning, and for me, it's been a kind of a timeless image. Uh, and when this particular spot also has an interesting memory for me, because rather traumatic in a way, because when I was in first standard, I was like this boy, as who were carrying the backpack there and going to school. I met with a scooter accident, and had a head injury, etc. I was okay. I get perhaps that's why that head injury, I guess, was a reason for me being as mad and eccentric as I have been through my life. Um, so so that was it was a very different Mangalore, when I was born there and brought up. This is another image from again late 90s, from Mangalore. Uh, the India itself was different for somebody who, it was, if you wanted to be a photographer then in any place other than perhaps Delhi, you might have to you could have been like a wedding photographer, like have a studio. Wedding photographer, very today the connotation of wedding photographer is different than what it was. Like a studio photographer, like you set up a studio, did passports, whatever else, passport size photographs, or photographed weddings, so on and so forth. uh, I was a merit student till 10th standard, and very rapidly lost interest in education from my 11th. The moment I got into pre-university, I had started losing by the time I was in 10th. It was so boring and mind-numbing. So I kind of by the time I somehow finished my 12th, I got introduced to photography by my cousin and my first guru, Rajendra Kumar. And that was a magical thing, magical moment, because just to go out and photograph. I hope everybody can hear me, because I can't know. Basav, I hope the audio is clear.
Yes, it
Uh,
is. Yes, it is. Yeah.
okay. So as I was, the first image, the first roll that I shot, and then you came back and I processed, and when we made a print in my cousin's darkroom in Bangalore, that was, I used to travel up and down, uh, uh, and it was quite magical. And that was, I also felt that it really helped me to express myself. So I was kind of hooked on, and I knew I wanted to be a professional photographer. So that I'm talking, this is about 1987, 1985, is the time when I decided to be a photographer, and very difficult times actually. There was no telephones, there was no couriers, and there was no speed post either. It was only a registered post, which kind of reached after several days of wherever you wanted it to go, and you kept your fingers crossed. Postal service is much more efficient now, and I'm a very big fan of Indian Post. I send all my photographs, my books by speed post only, and never a courier. They're really fantastic. They were not that. India itself was not that efficient back then, and just to even to make a call to Bangalore, I had to go to the local post office, which was about a kilometer and a half away or 2 kilometers away from my house. Not much of a walk though. It was easy. But the wait to book a trunk call was about 3 hours to connect to Bangalore. And that's what India was at that time. And the duty on cameras was prohibitive, 250%. So there was no way of one could really afford to buy a camera with bill, because it would really cost so much money, and nobody had that much money at that time, to apart from few rich people. Well, the situation hasn't changed. I think even today there are very few rich people, and not others don't have as much money, as the wealth has being gotten concentrated on 1% of the people. It's my pet subject, inequality. So I keep coming back to it. Uh, so that's when I started. I quit college in 1987 and moved to Bangalore to do photography. Few images I just want to run through. This was a time I actually, before quitting college, I wanted to know if I had in me to be a photographer. So I traveled to Delhi, took a train all the way from Mangalore, which those days there was no Konkan Railway, so the Jayanti Janata Express from Mangalore took some 3 or 4 or whatever days to reach Delhi. I was 18 years old, so that really didn't matter. I traveled in a third class compartment. The third class compartment didn't have even a phone. So it was a hard thing, and I spent 4 days, 3 nights in that. 18 years old, it really didn't matter. All you wanted to do was photography. And everything was interesting to me. I mean, everything is interesting even now, but I won't do that in a train. so. So I reached Delhi to meet. I wanted to meet Raghu Rai because he was an inspiration. He still is an inspiration. He was doing his great photo features along with other photographers, Prashant Panjar, Pramod Pushkarna, Bhavan Singh, and their photo stories were absolutely inspirational. I'm Prashant and I are good friends now, and Prashant was my hero when I was 17. So you can imagine, if you people who haven't heard of, if there's anybody who haven't heard of Prashant Panjar, please look him up. Another photographer who inspired me all through, continues to inspire today as well, apart from being a friend. So I went to Delhi, but I couldn't meet Raghu Rai. He was away. It was Pujo time, and he was in Calcutta shooting for his book. But I met Mr. Satyan, T.S. Satyan, and T.S. Satyan was really happy to have me at his home in that. I can't remember where he lived. And because I was another Kannadiga who wanted to be a photographer. And he formally called, invited me home. He got his, I think I must have had breakfast with him, and we spoke in Kannada. He was incredibly thrilled that a young Kannadiga boy wanted to be a photographer. And his only advice for me was finish your degree, please, kind of thing. That was, conservative South Indian that Mr. Satyan was. He looked at my pictures. He loved them, and he said, "Yeah, you must be." It was a very good thing, pat on the back. He sent me to Paul Saab, S. Paul. Paul Saab was Raghu Rai's elder brother, Raghu Rai's mentor. And at that time, not many people knew him outside of Delhi. He was the chief photographer of Indian Express, one of the most passionate photographers India has ever seen, a great photographer. Is no more. Paul Saab is no more. So I went to his house. I think it was in Ghaziabad at that time, and he was on his way to go to reach Bharatpur because there is a fire. This is 1986, October or so, September, October, and he looked at my pictures. He was shaving on one hand, looking at my picture. There was a cab waiting for him to go to Bharatpur. The great thing that Paul Saab at that time was a senior photographer, and he made time for a 17-year-old from Mangalore. That was an amazing thing. That had stayed in my memory all through, because people didn't know Mangalore at that time. And even Paul Saab didn't know where Mangalore was. His Bangalore people had heard. Mangalore people didn't know. That was 1986 India for you guys. But he made time. That what an amazing thing to have. Uh, uh, and he told me that he looked at my photographs and said, uh, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to be a photographer." I said, "I want to quit college." He said, "Yeah, that's the right thing to do. Leave it. That's useless thing to study and get your degree. Photography is great. Do that." You know. And I took that as a blessing. And what do you call? In Kannada, we have a saying called Veda Vakya. As so, and quit college and became a photographer. Um, Unfortunately, I didn't meet Paul Saab after that ever. In none of my visits to Delhi, and he passed away. But he inspired somebody and gave me a great blessing at that time. So this from Delhi, I went to Bombay photographing, and what I used to do was to do photo features. So I would do a whole lot of take a subject, do a photo feature. There used to be a newspaper called News Time from that is out of Hyderabad. I think it was Ramoji Rao, so I can't remember. But News Time used to publish a half-page photo story every week. Terrible reproduction, didn't matter. It was great to have your images published, and they paid good money. I did several photo features for News Time, on this trip. So I was doing a photo feature on VT. There's a Victoria Terminus back then, and that helped me recover the money that I spent on my trip. I think it was pretty good. So I might have photographed about 10 rolls through the trip. That's 200 rupees back then, 20 rupees a roll of FP4 Ilford. Today is 500, 600, whatever it is. And came back, processed it, and got it printed, wrote something, sent it to them. Two or three features helped me at least recover the cost of the film that I spent. So this was in Victoria Terminus, an image that still I'm quite happy about. So then I came back. No, this is not in chronological order. So I used to do a lot of photo features, as I said, and I would write because nobody would print the images, just the images. So I was really inspired by Raghu Rai's uh, photo features and musicians. So this was on Kadri Gopal Nath. I was 18. Kadri Gopal Nath must have been in his 30s. He was from Bangalore, a place called Kadri, and he was a family friend. I think he was everybody's friend in Bangalore. Everybody knew everybody else. He had played in many of our family weddings, so he generally was quite well known. So there, and I'm personally known. So it was easy for me to go and approach him, and he readily agreed. And he did whatever I wanted him to do. He had just come back from a tour to coast tour in the US. He had played already in several jazz festivals by then. The thing, how it happened was that he was playing. There was All India Radio has this had the South Zone music concert every week, once a week or whatever. So he had played in that. He was an A-grade artist, perhaps, of All India Radio. And Niranjan Javeri, who was the head of Jazz India, heard him and took him on a jazz tour and got him to play at many, many jazz festivals, Prague to Berlin to Tokyo to New Orleans. And, that something else, right, in the mid 80s to have that happen. And that really launched Kadri Gopalnath internationally, and he had just come back from a coast-to-coast tour. So I did this feature for Sudha magazine. Sudha published a multi-page feature of him, and this was a picture that I shot near his house.
We lost the screen, I think.
Sorry?
We lost your screen now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. An unknown error occurred. Okay, let me just come back on this.
You can just share it again.
No, I got booted out of my.
Okay.
Let me. I have to just log in.
Yeah.
Back here. I'm not connected. I don't have a hard line here, so it's all Wi-Fi. I mean, it's all, so that's the, okay.
Maybe you can tell us where you are so that people know.
Yeah. Where did you lose me?
Just when you said we were talking about his festivals abroad or his shows abroad. Yeah.
Should have joined from there.
Have you saved all the prints of these photographs that you made from that time?
Yeah, I mean, I can make the prints anytime, so I
No,
don't.
I meant from the magazines wherever they were.
Yeah, I have some, quite a few. Yes,
Okay.
yeah. Okay, I share screen. Okay, I'm back.
Okay, great. Yeah, you are back.
Okay, so yeah, I do have the tear sheets from that. Okay, so he had just come back, and I got him to who is very much there. Somebody said he's very much there. So
I think when you asked if you're back, yeah.
Okay. So on the screen, I may looking left or right, guys. There are some 3-4 computer screens in front of me as I'm looking at them. So I photographed. I took him. The valley in the photograph, the background, the valley that you see is where his house was, and so we went up the hill, and he posed for me. And there's some rare images from that. Look at the image. Okay, this was an image coming up from him practicing from his house. This was his house, and he was teaching. He was a student. I don't know who this person is on the right. These are pretty rare images. You'll never get it, of course, from that time. And it was very interesting. I used to process my own film. Then I would go and
maybe you can tell us a little bit about who Kadri Gopal Krishnan was for everybody, for somebody who doesn't know.
Okay, people should. Kadri Gopalnath is no more. It was a great saxophone player. He was world renowned, and he was born and brought up in Bangalore, lived there for a very long time, and then he moved to Chennai, scored music. For films, his son is what Kadri, I forget his name. He's a music composer. He was really a great player, played phenomenally. Look him up if you haven't heard or heard. If you're interested, hear him play. There'll be a lot of YouTube videos. This image of Kadri was photographed as I was working on my second book on the right hand side. That photo feature, I photographed him in his house. Then I want to photograph him at a concert. So he didn't have any concerts in Bangalore at that time. So he was just playing at a concert in Bangalore. So I've traveled to Bangalore to photograph him at that time, 86. And the photograph on the left is from 1986. It was a small kind of a Bidi concert. I mean, a concert on a neighborhood kind of a thing. They had cordoned off a road and put a shamiana, and that's where he was playing, somewhere in Rajajinagar. In my memory serves me right, it was somewhere there. And so and again photographed him. The image on the right is on from 2011 or so, when I was working on my new book on Bangalore, the Bangalore first person singular. This was at the Ramanavami festival at the Fort High School in Bangalore. And I did suppose this, I used to run at that time in around 11, 12 or whatever, a daily photo column in Vijaya, Karnataka. So that was very interesting. For a year, I published every day. There was a photograph and a story. And that was Vishweshwar Bhat, who was the editor of the newspaper, asked me to do it. And I took it up as a challenge. And that was a very, very fulfilling 1 year of photographing, contributing to Vijay Karnataka. and I think it was thanks to him this happened. And I published this picture got published, and that morning, in about 10 o'clock, I got a call from Kadri. "Entadu Marayre?" He was in his Bangalore, Canada. He was so thrilled to see this picture. And he called Vijay Karnataka, got my number, and he remembered who I was, of course. And then, it was just, it was, I was really thrilled to get a call from him. And it was a very nice moment for me. Uh, so that was my initial days. And as then 87 or so, I moved to Bangalore. And Okay, I moved to Bangalore in 1987 or so. Can anybody identify this? Not you, Vasa, but anybody identify? You can type in the chat box this place that may be theirs. Not really. Okay. It'll be great if you can. Everything is in Kannada, those Kannada readers. So in 87, I came to Bangalore. I worked for an advertising photographer friend of mine as an assistant for some time. And then I got an opportunity to do a book on Karnataka. It's called Karnataka Impressions. Anantamurthy wrote an essay. Dangaram Publications commissioned it. And it was edited by my Sharath. Yes, you're right. It's Agumbe. So it was edited by a dear friend of mine called Jaydev. Jaydev is no more. Jaydev, great guy, an amazing mind, very low profile. We were doing this book, and he said, you should go to Agumbe and do a photo feature for Frontline. Frontline used to publish a lot of photo features. So I went to Agumbe, spent a lot of time, not a lot, few days, staying there in the completely broken down. There was nothing in Agumbe in 88. It must be 88 or so, or 89, I guess. Malgudi Days had just come out a few years ago, maybe mid 80s. And after that, nobody bothered to do anything about Agumbe. There were no homestays. There was no nothing. There was one PWD bungalow which was so bad, and there was rats running all over the place. I don't know how I stayed there. I think being very young, 21, 22 might have helped. You can rough it out, right? It was really bad place. There were some interesting people. Unfortunately, I don't have that picture. I'll see if I can pull it up somewhere. It was there was a Britisher. His photograph is on my website. His Britisher architect, and it's very senior, retired architect who had come to Agumbe to just be. He was staying the Doddamane there, and as a guest, he had rented a room. And there was a medical student from KMC who used to come to Agumbe to again be. There was me, and there was another person, Jayaprakash Rao. I think he's running a school somewhere there now, if I'm not mistaken. So four interesting people were there, and I add myself to that list of interesting. So and we had a good time. I photographed Agumbe. There are a lot of images of it. I think it's on my website, some more. And I had a good time photographing that. The record of those times are, it's unique now. You don't get it anymore. This photo feature didn't get published. I went to Chennai to pitch for it, but they didn't publish it. So that was it. So there was a lot of these things. Influences. For me, some of my best work came from my very early years, and I think that there was somebody was saying that you junk your first 10,000 pictures, so after that you get your real work begins. Not true, really. These are some of my really early images, and it's on my portfolio. They still touch people. So the reason is that I had no baggage. I had no unencumbered. The freer, the mind was really free. it's quite free now, but it has a baggage of so many years, so many years of living, decades rather, and seeing things. So the optimism, the interest to do new things, I still have all that. Uh, but not having the baggage, I think, really helps in your creativity. Now, the next image that I'm going to show is also one of my favorites, and everybody loves it. This is from Gokarna. I'm showing this image to tell you everybody that why an image is not just click of the shutter. I was doing an assignment for Karnataka tourism. Karnataka tourism. There was an IAS officer who was heading it called Shantanu Consul. Uh, he wanted to build a library of images. So I got an assignment to go. They really didn't have much money, but they gave me a car and they paid me very little. Got to give me a car and a guide, and they took care of all the expenses of staying, etc., food. So I drove from Bangalore to Karwar and photographed the coast. Karnataka tourism promptly lost all the images that I had photographed. I had luckily kept some of the images for myself. Therefore, somebody asked a question. I'll come back to it on Agube. Sorry, I have some of them, some images left, and this was a favorite. I didn't give this to Karnataka tourism. I'm glad I did. How did this image come about? Why did I go to Gokarna? This is in Gokarna. Yeah, Gokarna being a travel, I mean, it's a place of pilgrimage. Then was important to photograph. Gokarna was only people who went to the temple, or the people who went to Gokarna those days were only the ones who went to the temple or to do the last rites of their love of this, there's someone who passed in the family. Today, it's like everybody goes. It's the young didn't go, young and hip people didn't go to Gokarna. It was those days. It had a very different feel. When I was in fourth standard, my grandfather passed away. That was 1975, and in 76, all of us, the family, went to Gokarna to his first year's death anniversary. So it was a time of emergency. It was a really the trip from Udupi to Gokarna took nearly one over 24 hours, because you took a bus from Udupi to Karwar, and there was no direct bus to Gokarna. You had to stay in Karwar overnight, take another bus to Gokarna. You can imagine how India was at that time. And stay at Gokarna, and it was etched in my memory. Then later, as I grew up, when I was in my teenage years, and late, I started reading Yashwant Chittala's novels, and it made a tremendous impression on me. One of people who don't know who Yashwant Chittala is, he was a great, one of the greatest writers Kannada literature has seen. He wrote fiction, many novels. I've read almost everything. He wrote about the human condition, psychology, and the recurring theme in his book. He used to live in Bombay, so Bombay was and Hanehalli, his village, which was near Gokarna. So I went looking for my memories of the childhood and to look at Hanehalli. Apart from being shooting for Karnataka tourism, and this image is a result of that. Of those, it won't represent everything. It, however, is a result of those thought processes that went on in my mind. It's people. I think it's even if I may, so it's a timeless image. It'll appeal to. It has the stories to tell. I don't even know where this kid now would be, a young man, middle-aged maybe. So I don't know. somebody asked a question about sunset, sunrise in Agumbe. Agumbe is known for its sunset, not sunrise really, because sunset's on the west and you can see the ocean on a clear day from there. I did photograph. Yes, it was a very big deal. I did photograph, but no, it's the people, the place, the culture. That's far more important for me now than a sunset. But I did photograph the sunset. Yes, not the sunrise. So that's what it is. So later on, okay. Now here comes to, this is a picture. By 1990s, I was freelancing for India Today from Bangalore. Did a lot of interesting assignments. Chidanand Rajghatta was the reporter. Once I walked into his office and they said, I want to freelance for you. And we hit it off and he gave me opportunities. And several years I used to freelance for India Today. They used to pay 250 rupees a day for assignment plus material cost. And if there's any travel, other costs. So I wanted to shoot for India Today. And this was an assignment. I was assisting a photographer, Bhavan Singh, Bhavan is no more too. Bhavan Singh in Kolar, he came down to Bangalore to do a photo feature on a joint family. There were like 60 or 70 or whatever number of people are living under one roof in Kolar. So I assisted. Ramesh Menon was writing. Ramesh Menon was a journalist, a very well-known journalist, a senior journalist of the country. Ramesh is in Delhi now. So Ramesh was writing and I assisted them because I was translating. I was helping Bhavan with people. I was an interpreter for and this I photographed Bhavan shooting people. And because of this assignment, later on, a few months later, when without me knowing, BBC's Channel 4 had commissioned Ketan Mehta to do a documentary on a joint family. A joint family that was from. No, he wanted to do a joint family, so he contacted India Today, and Ramesh Menon put him on to me. Ketan called me, and then I think I identified a family. He wanted a larger joint family if he could get. So I think I didn't help identify a family in near Dharwad where about 100 people lived in about. This was a series of films Channel 4 had commissioned. I forget the director of the Channel 4 at that time, very famous man. Baso, if you can remember, he is very famous in the film, television field. They had commissioned several directors from different parts of the world to do documentaries on different kinds of families. India was a joint family. So I had identified this family in Dharwad, and we spent several days photographing shooting in Dharwad. I was doing stills for the film. Navroz Contractor was the cinematographer, shooting on 16 mm film camera, cinema camera. I have a lot more stills from this time. And this is me on the left-hand side, how I was, 1991, I guess. And that's Deepa Sahi on the right. Deepa was, she had just done that hum, I think, and was quite famous at that time. And she was
also done Maya Memsam by this time.
Yeah, she had done. She was doing continuity. She was a continuity girl for the film, and it was a great time. There was Ketan, there was me. I think the sound person with the Nagra at the back. You don't see the Nagra there. Spool tape. Chandrasekhar, I think his name is. He's a very well-known sound recordist. I much later met him when he was shooting. For whom? There was Anushka Shankar was shooting. There was a film. They were shooting at Nrityagram, and he was there. That was in maybe in this century. And I met him much later. So he's there, and the young lady over there, she was helping us. I forget her name. One Mr. Kulkarni, Harish Kulkarni, Girish Kulkarni. He was the line producer, if you will. He was a kind of a producer for everybody who came to Dharwad at that time. He would also go wake up early in the morning and get us Dharwad pedas. Dharwad pedas today, the Mishra pedas are available everywhere easily. It was not so then. Only Mishra family, they made those pedas only in Dharwad. It was only available in that house, and the sale would start at in an early hour of 4 o'clock or so, and everything would be over by 6. So if you didn't get your peda that day, you would go the next day. So Mr. Kulkarni, I think, went and got pedas for all of us. Not every day, just before we left. So he really couldn't do that. And that was so special about them. But now they have franchised and gone all over the place. And this is I haven't seen the film. Maybe Navroz has it. I don't know. I have to ask him. So that was, but really interesting times. Great work, great assignment. So that is how. So I had. So this was an. I don't know if anybody can recognize this man. Chidu once told me, Chidanand Rajghatta. This is my first assignment for India today. He said, "Hey, these guys in Jamkandi town in North Karnataka are building a dam across River Krishna. It's interesting because they're doing it by themselves. Not Prahlad Joshi, Sharat, not Prahlad Joshi. It looks like him though, not Prahlad Joshi. So he said, let's go and do a story on them. So yeah, we set out that day. It was from Bangalore, an ambassador car. Chidu, Gauri Lankesh, and me. Gauri used to work for, I think she was between jobs at that time. So, she was married to Chidu. So all of us set out and we had a great time. And Gauri and I also bonded well, became very close, very good friends. Gauri tried to much later on, tried to do some matchmaking for me, etc., etc. So this is so we went to Jamkandi one evening, reached late in the evening. I can't remember where we stayed, maybe in the Travelers Bungalow. He's Sidhu Nyamagowda. Sidhu Nyamagowda was a local leader, local farmer himself, a well-to-do man. The Jamkandi town was by the Krishna River. They had something called Krishna Tira Raita Sangha. And they wanted to build a dam because they want small check dam to have, to store water for summer. Ramakrishna Hegde's government didn't have money, but they gave them permission to build as long as people didn't come to ask them for money, ask the government. So they built their own dam this is a photograph that I'm sharing now is of the construction. People, gave little things. Some gave the shramdan, like auto drivers would, come there for an hour in between during lunchtime and work. It was a great cooperative effort. And what you see on the right-hand side is a bridge. And they built that check dam. Sidhu Nyamagowda became very famous. He later defeated Ramakrishna Hegde in an election. He even went on to become a central minister in Rajiv Gandhi's cabinet, Minister of State. He was an MLC and so sitting MLC, and he met with an accident a few years ago and passed away. So that was Sidhu Nyamagowda's assignment. I'm just using. There's a lot of Karnataka history in it. As I said, everything has an Indian. It is very relevant to Indian context. Sidhu Nyamagowda became, from a small town in Jamkandi, became a central minister because of that work. Kadri Gopalnath was an international figure from a small town in Bangalore. So I'm lucky to have photographed all of them in their formative years. A politician, Ramakrishna Hegde. This is one of my favorite images, photographed in the study at home. He was giving an interview for Society, I think. Pinky Virani was the correspondent at that time. And I did a whole lot of images in his study as he was interviewing, talking to Pinky. And This is my picture, because his career, political career at that time was down in the dumps. He had resigned as the chief minister, and the light, it was lit by this window light. There's no external light, and very, I really like that image. This image. Now this, I think, was photographed later, perhaps. I can't, this, again, a important image from the Indian political history. This was VP Singh, who was Rajiv Gandhi's finance minister, had set up, was it Janata Party? Yes, Janata Party, and he was campaigning. This was a defining election, early 90s, I think, 92 or so. And Ramakrishna Hegde was there, VP Singh, and on the other, right, can anybody identify the man on the last person who was talking to someone? Can anybody identify?
I can. I'll wait.
Anybody else will? Yeah, it was Basaraj Bommai, sorry, Senior Bommai, SR Bommai, and they were all together. This was a campaign in Tumkur. And there are other color images.
Are you there, Mahesh? Yeah, you're back now, I think.
Sorry, okay, yeah. Now you see this image.
Yeah.
VP Singh and Ajit Singh. Ajit Singh had just come back from the US, and he was working there, and given up his corporate career, and he's come back. Was it Nanjunda Swami at the back? I can't make out the person in the bearded man. I can't really, of right Sangha, I can't make out. I can't remember. You can see Jayaprakash Narayan's photo at the back. So sorry, there's a call keep coming. So
okay, no.
Okay. So what I was saying, yeah, I was shooting for India Today, and India Today, one had access at that time. You just say you're India. You didn't have to show an ID, and you could go so close to all these guys. VP Singh was tipped to be the prime minister, and you could go so close to all of them, and that was very interesting times. So that was so easy. The access was easy, so one could photograph well. And this guy is persistent guy, keeps calling me. Sharad, in the initial stages, magazines prefer black and white because it was easier to reproduce. We shot, a lot of us at that time photographed black and white because it was easier to, it is cheaper than color, and you could process it yourself, and you had a lot more control. So black and white, as color was used only special. I'll tell you why. Magazines had to, or newspapers had, they would use color photograph only if they had a color ad in that page, because only then would those pages get printed in 4-color, otherwise single color. So only then would, so largely all the advertisements were black and white. So therefore, a lot more black and white images were used, right? So special issues, and if they knew there was going to be ads, and then they would commission color photography. Now, this image was interesting. Ramakrishna Hegde, this is when Ramakrishna Hegde had to resign, and SR Bommai became chief minister. And SR Bommai stayed at Balabrui, where the house of Devaraja stayed, I think. There's some kind of a superstition attached to it. It was the official residence of the chief minister of Karnataka, but he didn't stay there. Nobody stayed there. There's some superstition attached to it. But Bommai stayed. He didn't bother. And there was a cutout of Hegde at that somewhere there. This is quite close to High Grounds police station. near that circle, and they had just put this image down to take it away, cut it away after whatever it was put up for was over, and and it was very strategic. It was just there, and I was also happened to be there, and I photographed that picture, this image. Bommai as chief minister, who was with the Hegde earlier, and then Hegde was booted out, and he had to get resigned. It was quite a political image for the times, So that is the how it was. We have very little time, I guess, no, Basa?
I mean, we can extend it.
Okay, another 15 minutes would be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me. Okay, now a series of images of my beloved Bangalore. This is again from the 80s. This was this image, and the next one that I'm showing was only possible because access to public spaces to Vidhana Sauda Vidhan Sauda, state capital, was open for everybody. It was an open space where people could people could go and be at and be there at will. So sorry, what happened? Okay. Sorry, yeah. The previous photograph, this one is of a lady in an early morning walk at Vidhan Sauda. Was it evening? This must be evening. I can't remember now. Anyway, yeah, it was evening because that light is on the other side. This is, I was on MG Road one day, and there was a storm, and I saw the storm broke and sun was peeping out from behind Vidhan Sauda, and I knew that there was something dramatic was going to happen. Because there were no one ways, there was no traffic, was easy. I bolted on my bike to Vidhan Sauda. I was there in a couple of minutes, and I could park right there and run up the stairs to photograph the spectacle of the light hitting the GPO, General Post Office, and the dark skies. Everything was in place. It was only possible because the Bangalore was open. There was no security problems. Vidhan Sauda today is a fortress. Apparently, Kengal Hanumantaya, when he built Vidhan Sauda, he wanted it to be a people's place, but it is not anymore, unfortunately. Now, this is again a very important image for me. This is at the Karaga festival in Bangalore. This is again in my book, Bangalore, where Hindu gods, the Pandavas, who are the go into a dargah. This has been happening for hundreds of years, happens even now. I don't think there was a dargah. I mean, there was a Karaga festival last year because of pandemic. Otherwise, hundreds and thousands of people go. The chief minister goes. It's a very important festival. I would call it the festival of Bangalore. It is all about the intermingling of religions, intermingling of nature and human, intermingling of genders, because the man who carries that karaga and dances all through the night is actually, he becomes a woman. He's Draupadi for the night. So man becomes woman. It is an amazing festival with great significance. So this is as an image of great importance. All these things are, I believe, became part of a society because to keep our social fabric together. It's just amazing to hear conversations between the people, Hindus and the Muslims there, where the Hindus would go and tell the imams that they couldn't come to the urus because they had to go for a trip, and then they would come to Dargah later, and it's great feeling, and this is great. It happens in Bangalore. Now, this is can anybody identify this lady? The first lady of Indian cinema, a great actor, the last formal portrait of this famous actor. The first on-screen kiss was by this actor. Of course, the male actor was her husband at that time. Devika Rani's last portrait uh, at, I would say, Balraj Rorik was a husband from our context. Uh,
Yeah.
so I photographed him and at Ashoka Hotel where they were living. They were very old and they couldn't live in Tataguni Estate anymore, beyond town. So they had moved into Ashok Hotel for better healthcare, to be closer to hospitals, doctors, etc. Dr. Ramana Rao was their physician. He was there, and this is again for India Today that I had photographed. Um,
What year that was, Mahesh?
Sorry? It
What
was
year?
89, 90 maybe,
Okay.
This is Devika Rani. Sorry, another great actor. Anybody identify her? Bangalore. She used to live in Bangalore. I photographed this for Gauri for Sunday magazine. Story Gauri was doing. Yeah, Wahida Rahman at a Garonda, at a house on Banirgata Road. Again, I can't remember that year, early 90s somewhere. So another portrait of Bangaloreans. This was Colonel Thomas and Barbara Thomas. They used to live on this 1 acre property on Convent Road, Bangalore, where I was a paying guest. I photographed this for my book on Bangalore called Bangalore Scenes from an Indian City, done for Gangarams in mid-90s. Again, done with Jaydev. A quintessential old Bangalore Anglo-Indian home and people. So just showing some images. This is, yes, she lived, yes. So I a little bit of Bangalore, and then again another photograph. This is from Orissa. Much later, I was shooting the aftermath of the big cyclone there, and this was an image of Deepa Mandal, who had lost a husband, who was living at the 15 rupees a day kind of situation at that time, and this image kind of really, has remained very close to my heart. This was in Jagat Singhpura district in Orissa. So in a way, I can't really show my entire repertoire of images of 35 years in a short time. Uh, not even little bit of it. I mean, maybe a little bit of it, microcosm of. Look at my website at maheshbhat.com. You can go to exposure.co and look for some of my work on Manipur and Bangalore's migrant problems that we had last year, issues. Uh, so that is, please do look at my website, maheshbhat.com with a single T. This is some of the books that I have done over the times. Karnataka, Bangalore Scenes from an Indian City, Bengaluru, Bangalore, my book, Unsung series, 2 books. I'm now working on a book on Yakshagana, the traditional makeup of Yakshagana. So that we come to the end of it. I'll just leave you with an image of, one thing that deeply troubles me now is the state of Western Ghats. Soon, Sharad, we are it's really delayed, I know. That's how bookmaking is, unfortunately. We have everything is ready. The text is getting translated to English from Kannada right now. Pratibha Nandakumar is translating it. It's a bilingual book. So that's happening. Western Ghats, an image that I photographed from the train as I was going from Bangalore to Bangalore. Our Karnataka state government is bent upon destroying Western Ghats with many so-called developmental projects, train tracks, dams. Without Western Ghats, we are not going to be around. So I just hope people realize it. So that's about it. For today, this last image for the evening from a remote beach in near Kumta called Kagala. Just nothing, just an image. So that's about it. I mean, I have starting from Bangalore. Here, I photographed all across India. My project, there are many, many projects that I've done. Unsung is a which I've not talked about in this webinar. Unsung.in. Please do see. It's a kind of a defining project for me as a photographer, publisher, uh, and quite a few others. My work in Northeast, everything is available on the. I've done worked in Sri Lanka, tsunami, the war, Nagaland, Manipur. Uh, uh, my deep work remain are in two states. That's all up there in unsung.in and exposure.co. I've done corporate assignments, which are not shown here, advertising assignments. Now I do films. Desperately trying to do my feature film, my first one, which I've been working on for years, called Funnel South Parade. I hope I'm able to do that sooner than later. So I really don't want to be a filmmaker, or like a feature filmmaker, but I just want to do this one film. So that's about it for now. Basam.
Yeah, thank you, Mahesh. This is amazing. I mean, I've always been intrigued by your archival images, and it's very interesting to see some of them. I hope people also enjoyed it. I am going to ask you a question to begin the Q&A, and people can also, if they want to ask with their by unmuting themselves, they're most welcome. But I was curious, how would you do like the photojournalism in 80s, 90s, because you had to you're photographing a current event which is happening, and then you would need time to sort of develop and then send it back to the magazine, and then they would publish. So by the time they publish, it would have already been like a past event, no?
Well, it was not, things were not that frantic as it is now. So you had to, everything was planned for. So that was okay. Everything was, there was not a great urgency. I think some newspapers, there was still wire service. They used to send it via, I think, teleprinter, or there was telex. Telex was a text. There was something called teleprinter. So uh, some news agencies used to send images, but other than that, it's okay. I mean, there was a bit of people planned for it. So the newspapers, magazines were one of the primary modes of accessing news and views. So that was okay. Everybody planned for that. Yeah.
Okay. Sharath is asking a question.
What is that?
One point you mentioned about you being happy about what you photographed in early days compared to later years, and your journey out of small town like Bangalore to city like Bangalore. Did that move from small city, small town to big city had an impact? Did it have an impact on the way of seeing basically, and your creativity? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy about my images, not compared to later years. I think later years also good or only have improved. But I really like the images that I've shot. So that of that time. So the images are different, and I'm quite happy about what I'm doing now too. I'm quite happy about that. Not There's no comparison there, but that was interesting. And Bangalore, yeah, Bangalore, I met a whole lot of different kinds of people. My friend Jaidev, a great impression on me. He was a mentor, and he introduced me to the work of Raghuveer Singh. He introduced me to the work of futurisms and urbanism. Uh, to variety of expanding my mind, and he was a very big, and a whole lot of others, Rajgatta to Gauri Lankesh, meeting other people, other photographers, working with other photographers in Bangalore, setting up something called Advertising and Industrial Photographers Association of India, traveling abroad. So yeah, it just grew and grew. I keep growing even today. And I teach now at Srishti Manipal Institute of Art, Design and Technology. And there's growth every day. And that teaching keeps me young, because I'm meeting the 20 somethings every day. I'm not for the last 1.5 years, has been a bit of a bummer because it's online. So it keeps my creativity alive. Bangalore and the world, I mean, that has helped me grow. Yeah. I think
Yeah,
Bangalore also introduced me to urbanism and being interested in the growth of a city. As a chronicler of Bangalore, that I've done 2 books, and a lot of photography, and seen the city grow, becoming a big mess as it is today. You know? So yeah.
yeah. Balraj has a question which is quite interesting. Is it storytelling that draws you to photography, or is it the other way that photography has turned you into a storyteller?
There is, I think it's both. As I said, the moment I picked up camera and did my first picture, the magical magicality, of, or a magical realism of making an image, that is telling something through the images. That is telling. I mean, you're saying something, right? You are saying. If you don't, if the image, it may say different things to different people, but yeah, there is something. So it is storytelling that drew me to photography for sure, and photography continued help make me a better and better storyteller. So if you're telling a story of a war, that is different. You work differently. You're storytelling of a disaster. You're storing something, a happy thing. You're working differently. So you have to keep thinking. It's a political. If you're making a political story, then you work differently. So you are evolving. So it's both.
Yeah. So I have a question. So earlier, I mean, many of the famous photographers we have known, including you, have been people who whose life lived experiences have shaped their work and art, right? But now we have so many photography school, including where you teach at Srishti. So can photography be really taught? Like, this is a question which also comes up when we talk about creative writing and or any art. So how do you? What would be your advice to young people? Should they leave college like the advice you got, or should they actually go to like a photography college and study?
No, the thing is that one thing is Srishti Manipal Institute now Srishti Manipal. We don't have a photography course there. We don't offer a degree in photography. There's a filmmaking course. I just want to make it clear. But to be aspiring photographers or filmmakers or writers, uh, what I've seen, and again, a great photographer called Albert Watson told me is that, I mean, he said, unless you have it, unless the chemicals are right for you, you can't do it. Yes, I mean, body is made of chemicals. So, yes, I mean, if you want to be a photographer or a filmmaker or a singer or a writer, I think that basic ability should be within you, right? It's like my departed friend, Mr. Vijayanath Shenoy of Bangalore, who built the Heritage Village. He was not a trained architect, but Charles Correa called him the greatest architect he's ever seen. Shenoy Mom was a banker, but it was there inherently in him. The aesthetics, they need to be. You have to have something within you. Then you can train. I didn't go to. I quit college because there was no photography schools back then in India. I couldn't go abroad and study, and there's no money to do that. That's why I helped set up the first 3-year program in photography in India. What I couldn't do. Yeah. So I think if there's if you get admitted to a good school, good college, nothing like going and studying there, because you meet different kinds of people. Yeah, and different exposures, different things.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you, Mahesh. If no one else has a question, we can wrap it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing, and thank you for your time and knowledge with
Yeah.
us.
Thanks. So thanks for calling
Yeah.
me. Thanks for
Thank you
being.
everyone for joining. We will also be recorded. We have recorded this, so it will be up on our YouTube channel also in few days' time. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you everyone. Good night.
Good night.